Goodness. Alex, grabe. Congratulations. Ha, grabe yung laban. Kwento mo sa amin, ano nangyari after the first set? Anong sinabi mo sa sarili mo? Saan ka humugot ng lakas na makabawi pa after that first set loss?
Alam mo, hindi ako masyadong nadismaya sa first set. Kasi okay naman yung palo ko. Masaya ako sa level ng competition. At nagkaroon din ako ng mga chances, no? Ng set point, mga break points. Kaya hindi ako masyadong nadismaya. At yan, kaya namang lumaban. So
3 hours and 20 minutes. A first set that slipped away despite holding 4 set points. A seasoned opponent who knows precisely how to make every moment on court feel uncomfortable. And then Alex Eala walked up to the microphone and said something that brought the entire room to a standstill. Not because it was dramatic, because it was so calm, so composed, that it suddenly made everything you had just watched make complete sense. Drop a comment below after hearing everything Eala said in her post-match interview about pressure, progress, and what it means to belong at this level. Do you think she goes all the way to the final at Miami 2026? Let us know what you think.
Long match today and the win.
I'm really happy with the match today. I really had to dig deep. I know that Laura is such a fighter, so I'm happy with my patience and my strength, both physically and mentally today.
Let's start with what the scoreline actually shows, and then get into everything it doesn't. Alex Eala defeated Laura Siegemund 6-7, 6-3, 6-3 in 3 hours and 20 minutes at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens. She moves into the third round of the 2026 Miami Open. That is the official result. That is what gets recorded on the draw sheet, processed by the ranking algorithm, and added to the points total she is building toward what could be a top 20 finish by the end of this tournament. What the scoreline does not show is this. Eala held 4 set points in the first set and could not convert a single one. Siegemund, a veteran who has spent her entire career learning how to take matches that looked like they were heading somewhere else, seized every one of those missed chances and closed out the tiebreak 8-6 to steal the opening set. And at that specific moment, the weight of everything pressing down on Eala became very real. She was returning to the tournament that had changed her life 12 months earlier. Same court. Same kind of Filipino crowd that had turned Hard Rock Stadium into something that felt like a home venue. And now she was staring at a 1-set deficit against an opponent who had every intention of making the next 2 sets just as difficult.
Congratulations on a big win today. You're so popular. And you're dealing with it. It's incredible. And we talked to James Blake a little bit, and he said he has to give you center court. What is it like with all the adulation? How are you handling it? And anything you want to say to your fans? Thank you.
I like to think that I'm handling it pretty well. Of course, I'm super grateful to all my fans because they really, they take the time out of their days to come see me. It's a lot of effort to go out and to come to these events, so I hope they have fun. They purchase tickets, so they're spending their hard-earned money to come see us. So I'm really grateful for that.
And then Eala walked into the second set and won it 6-3. Then walked into the third set and won it 6-3. She never looked back. She never allowed those 4 missed set points in the first set to become the headline. She simply reset, and then won the next 2 sets with a kind of quiet authority that makes a 3 hour and 20-minute match look surprisingly straightforward on the results page. After the match, she was asked to explain how she did it. What she said in that post-match interview is the most interesting part of this entire story. She said she really had to dig deep. She said she knew Siegemund was a fighter, and that she was proud of her own patience and her strength, both physically and mentally. And then she said something about the first set that made a lot of people stop and think. She said that even after losing the first set, her only thought was that it had been a good first set. That she had played well when it counted. Sit with that for a moment. She lost the first set despite holding 4 set points. In a match she needed to win. At the tournament where every eye in the tennis world is on her. And her internal reaction was essentially, that was a solid set, she competed well, now move forward. That is not the response of someone battling their own nerves. That is the response of a player who has genuinely accepted that losing a set is just information. Not a warning sign. Not a reason to spiral. Just data about where the match is and what needs to change. She also said that all the work had been done before the tournament even began. That detail matters more than it might first appear. She was not stepping onto that court hoping things would fall her way. She was stepping onto it trusting that her preparation had been thorough enough to handle whatever didn't. And when the first set didn't go her way, 4 set points gone, tiebreak lost, the preparation held. She didn't panic. She gathered herself and got back to work. The second set was essentially a demonstration of what Eala looks like when she is operating at full capacity and the mental noise has been cleared away. She broke early and kept control throughout, backing it up with strong service games including 2 held to love. She stayed aggressive on returns. She broke again late in the set to finish it 6-3. Siegemund, who had spent the entire first set building her rhythm through tactical disruption and long, drawn-out rallies, suddenly had no answer for an opponent who had simply chosen to raise her level. The third set carried the same pattern, but with higher stakes attached to every point. Eala saved break points early, exactly the kind of moment in a deciding set where a match can turn quickly if the momentum slips away. She didn't let it slip. She converted an aggressive return game to go up 2-0. Siegemund briefly broke back, the way experienced players tend to do in third sets when they sense the match moving away from them. Eala responded without hesitation. Another break made it 3-1. Composed shot-making and well-timed serving carried her the rest of the way. She served for the match at 5-3 and closed it out. The victory shout at the end was genuine, loud, and entirely deserved after 3 hours and 20 minutes of that particular brand of tennis. In the interview, she said she puts everything she has into matches like these, that every match at this level feels like life and death because the competition is so tight and the standard is so high. She spoke about the circuit she has been moving through this year, the Australian Open, Manila, the 500 level events, all of it high level, all of it demanding. She knows exactly what standard she is competing at. And the emotion she showed at the end of that match was the natural release of everything it had taken to survive it and come out on top. Then she said something that reframes the entire Miami 2026 story in a way that genuinely matters. She said it means the world to her and that it tested her progress. She said she has improved as a person from last year. She said she was happy to have competed and that Siegemund is an amazing fighter. Improved as a person from last year. That is a deliberate and specific choice of words. Not improved as a player, though she has, but as a person. The maturity to absorb a lost set and keep competing cleanly. The composure to stay level when the match isn't going the way it should. The patience to play 3 hours and 20 minutes of physically punishing tennis without losing the mental clarity that makes the big decisions in the late stages reliable. Here's the rewritten continuation. These are not technical skills that get drilled into a player on a practice court. These are qualities that only come through lived experience, through reflection, through difficulty, and through the specific kind of growth that happens when a 20-year-old has to navigate everything the last 12 months have placed in front of Eala. The conversation she had about pressure in that interview was one of the most honest things said in a post-match setting at this entire tournament. She admitted that there is definitely pressure coming back to Miami. She is defending 390 ranking points from last year's semi-final run. An early exit would hurt her ranking, and anyone who follows tennis closely understands exactly what is at stake for her at this specific event. And then she said, "But I am happy because I have been doing well throughout the year. This is not the tournament where everything is on the line." That is the kind of statement most athletes only arrive at much later in their careers. She is not treating Miami as the only thing that matters, because it isn't. The Australian Open was real. Dubai was real. Indian Wells was real. The entire first quarter of 2026 has been a sustained demonstration that she is a consistently top 30 player who is still finding ways to improve. Miami is part of that story. An important part, but not the whole of it. That perspective is precisely what separates her mindset from the kind of pressure that causes players to tighten up when the moment gets big. She walked onto that center court already knowing she had been playing well this year, that her game was in good shape, and that whatever happened in Miami would be 1 point on a graph that was already moving in the right direction. So when the first set slipped away, that context kept her steady. It wasn't a disaster. It was one set, in one match, in one tournament, in a year that had already been proving something about who she is as a player. She also spoke about the progression of her career in a way that made clear she thinks about it as a long-term project, not as a string of individual results to be managed one at a time. She said she has been watching the work she puts in behind the scenes start to show up on court. She said that even when she loses, it is always part of the process. An athlete who has genuinely internalized that idea, not as something they say to journalists, but as an actual framework for how they measure their own development, is an athlete who is very hard to break mentally. Because no single bad result can knock someone off course when they are measuring progress across a longer timeline. Siegemund taking the first set was not a derailment. It was information. And Eala responded to information rather than to fear. The third round opponent is now confirmed. Eala will face Magdalena Freck, who pulled off a significant upset by defeating Svitolina in 3 sets. The Svitolina rematch that the tennis world had been anticipating since the draw was released, the player Eala had beaten on these very courts in last year's quarter-finals in one of the most stunning results of the 2025 season, was eliminated before the two could meet again. The narrative thread everyone had been pulling on got cut short by Frecha's performance. Eala's reaction to that news was entirely in keeping with everything else she had said that evening. She said the fact that she is in a position where a potential matchup with either Svitolina or Frecha is even possible is a really positive sign for her, especially after a match like today's. She is not frustrated that the Svitolina rematch didn't happen. She is grateful to be in the position to face either of them. That framing, gratitude for where she stands rather than disappointment about what didn't happen, is completely consistent with everything else she expressed after this match. She has beaten Frecha before, at the ASB Classic in Auckland earlier this year, winning 6-3, 6-2 to reach the semifinals. She has also lost to her twice, at Nottingham in 2025 and Abu Dhabi in 2024. The head-to-head sits at 2-1 in Frecha's favour, with Eala winning their most recent meeting. A third-round match at the Miami Open is a different stage entirely from any of those previous encounters. Frecha is a capable, experienced player who just knocked out the world number 2. She will not make things easy. But Eala has spent the last 3 hours and 20 minutes showing that she handles difficult opponents in difficult conditions better than her ranking alone might suggest. The work was done before this tournament started. The first set proved things could go wrong. The next 2 sets proved it didn't matter. 4 set points gone in the opening set. 3 hours and 20 minutes on court. A seasoned opponent who made every single point feel like a negotiation. And Alex Eala came out the other side with a 6-3, 6-3 run across the final 2 sets, and her voice still telling the truth when the microphone was put in front of her. Hit that like button if you are all in on her Miami 2026 story.